Yo, what up, YouTube? And much love to all of my family. Um, uh, Huge love to my daughter. Huge love to my nieces. Huge love to my mother, my sister, her partner, my father. Um, this is a new channel, just a personal channel, really. So, yeah, there might be some boring content on this one. Um, Not really going to be focusing on my music on this one. This is just going to be like a video log of general chit chat, just me talking rubbish, really. But yeah, I don't know why. I just had a bit of a calling to make a random channel just about me. So here it is. Like I say, not the most exciting of topics or anything, but it's going to be like a bit of a video log of day-to-day stuff. I'll probably post some family things on here. Um, Most of my family stuff will probably be like, what's the word, unlisted or whatever. So it'll just be for my family members. Um, but there's going to be like a bit of a video log of me just talking about day-to-day life and what my reality brings every day, and the ups, the downs, the in-betweens, and all that kind of stuff. So um, yeah, also huge love to any of my friends that happen to watch it, and any fans that the channel may bring. Like I say, probably probably not really a fan based channel, but you never know. Never know who watches you on YouTube. So um, yeah, one of them. Well, that being said, I've very recently kicked a cannabis habit that I had. I actually kicked it when I had my daughter, and then I relapsed a little bit because I'm currently having to go to court just to see her, unfortunately. Um, so yeah, trying to think of something else. Oh, that were it. I wanted to speak about my habit. Basically, I'd had a cannabis habit for the last. I've lost track of exactly how long, but I started smoking weed at about 16, roughly, and I recently managed to kick my habit. I'm now 39, go 40 May next year, so whatever that works out to be. And I've done, like I say, when I had my daughter, I did about 3 months, and then I relapsed when uh, my ex stopped access to me seeing her. And then I recently decided to continue stopping because I need to get my life in order and be a dad, basically. So here I am, and I recently joined a thing. It's called Horizons, but because it took so long to get me into it, I've skipped the rehabilitation part of it, if that makes sense. So I'm like on the recovery side of that now. They've just put me straight into like the thing to help prevent people from relapsing. So I went and had my first session yesterday, I think it were, on that, and met some lovely people on the Horizons thing. And my next goal, personal goal, is to give up smoking cigs, because I'm a heavy cigarette smoker now. Like I say, I used to be a heavy cannabis user, and it's now changed into a bit of a nicotine habit, if that makes sense. So my next stage is going to be to stop using nicotine. I'm going to start using a vape for a while because I actually prefer a vape, but I don't want to end up dependent on a vape either. So it's like a stepping stone. I tend to find that licorice sticks help me a lot with not smoking, and obviously regular chewing gum, and also nicotine gum, obviously. But the nicotine gum is so nasty. I tend to mix it with what do you call it? Regular gum, basically, just to give it some flavour. When I'm actually on with kicking a nicotine habit. Not that I've been successful yet, because I'm still smoking cigs, but like I say, one step at a time, basically. Anyway, so I don't know what else to really say now. I don't know whether or not to go into my past or what, but quick rundown of my life. Well, I won't go right into my life. That'll come in time on this channel. But when I was young, I was always into sports and stuff. I think my first sport was inline skating, and I sort of went into skateboarding, if I remember correct. Oh no, I went straight into BMXing after that, actually. Went into a bit of BMXing. Then I went from BMXing to bike trials. I excelled at bike trials, actually. I did it for a number of years and started entering like British championships and things like that. At the peak of, I can't call it a career because I weren't being paid for it, but my hobby. I used to dabble a little bit with skateboarding. Every now and again I'd like spend several months skateboarding and stuff like that, and at one stage I got pretty good at that. I went out to Australia, and when I first went there, all I had were a skateboard, because obviously I could take it in hand luggage, so I took a skateboard over in hand luggage, and I couldn't afford a bike for quite some time, so I was just constantly skating and got pretty decent. Then I bought a BMX whilst I was out in Australia with my first wage, because I was on a working holiday at the time. And, I just didn't really skateboard after that. I just hung around with all the BMXers and I got probably to my peak of BMXing when I was in Australia. I got so I could do all the grinds that I was aware of. And I basically started learning the opposite grinds, where you're like on your wrong side, because obviously everybody's left and right handed. So I started learning all that. And when I come back to England, first time back, I think I moved to Skipton, and that's where I really got into my music stuff, because I think around time I'd sort of stopped trials bike riding, were when I got into like substance abuse, basically, and that led to going to like raves and getting on the sesh, as they call it, and so I sort of dabbled a little bit with music too, before I went out to Australia, which I sort of forgot to mention in order. But I think I bought my first turntables around then, and that's another thing. I couldn't afford any turntables in Australia either. They were crazy money. But I just ended up spending my time BMXing, like I say. I did go and watch a couple of events and things out there, music events and stuff like that, which were a good experience. I saw one of my idols as growing up, whilst I was out there, which were DJ Kentaro, one of the DMC world champions. But to be honest, I mean, that were a brilliant night and everything, and I wasn't getting wasted. I remember I went there with like a little bit of weed, right, and enough for like 2 beers, and I got lost on the way there, and I actually ran out of weed as I was approaching the door of the place, you know, like, so I pretty much was sober the whole night and took on board all the stuff that DJ Kentaro were doing. And then when I did come back to England eventually, it really helped me to learn stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise known as a DJ, basically. By the way, if you like DJ music, I have another channel which is Old Dirty Jackson, and I also have another one which is DJ Roller J. My Old Dirty Jackson channel is like my main music channel, and my DJ Roller J one were, like I say, I don't smoke weed anymore, but that was my name. Mainly for like my dance sort of musics and dubby musics and things like that. Whereas in the Old Dirty Jackson one is like hip hop. But basically, so I'd learned all this stuff just whilst I was travelling, really. Well, not all of it, but you know, I picked up a lot of inspiration from watching that set. And one of the other things I wanted to mention, I went to, totally at random, I was just walking, having a walk and minding my own business, and I stumbled upon like a hip hop and rock festival. No idea what it was called or anything, but it was an absolute blast. And I remember bumping into these rock chicks, right? And they were like, "Hey, you got a diary, bro? You got a?" I thought they were saying dart. Have you got a dart? You know, like what you throw and everything. But yeah, the experience were pretty wild, and you know, listening to a lot of Aussie hip hop, which is not big at all in the UK, but in Australia, at least when I was there anyway, it were all over on TV, on music channels and stuff like that, you know, whereas in the UK you tend to get the American hip hop and things, you know, nowadays a little bit of UK hip hop and maybe grime and things, but or I think it's drill nowadays, in fact, but you know, like back then it were like your Dr. Dre and all that kind of stuff on our channels, and when I went out there it were all this new Aussie hip hop, and it can take a bit of getting into, you know, like it's kind of weird sort of accent difference and everything, but I remember there were a group called Hilltop Hoods, and they were like pretty banging, and there were a few others, and there were, what were they called? On the Kentaro night that I went to, there was this small group, right? I can't think for the life of me what they were called, but I remember them being pretty banging. I do have some of the music as well. If I could find it, I'd play it if YouTube would allow it. I think they're that small though that it won't even recognise it on the algorithm. And they like opened up for that evening. And then going back in history, when I used to be in the UK, before I went to Australia, I used to go to a night in Chapeltown in Leeds called Subdub fairly regular, and it used to be pretty banging. You know, originally they were all dubstep and drum and bass. Back when dubstep were like just sort of coming out, you know, like it had only just really started as a genre at the time. So it were like Casper and Rusko and things like that. Is it Benga and people like that? And back then I were actually really into my drum and bass. I weren't that mad on the dubstep. I liked some of the Rusko stuff and things like that, but I was more drum and bass because of my age and everything, and I was taking a lot of MDMA and, you know, just in my own little rave world. But I had a girlfriend at the time who used to be a dubstep head, and she used to always like force me into the dubstep room, and over time like gradually grew on me. And she used to buy dubstep records as well, and I remember back then I couldn't mix for shit, and to be honest, as a DJ that's still my weak point really. You know, I've always been more of like a scratcher and a beat juggler, but when it comes to mixing, I've got to be DJing all the time to be on point with my mixing. And basically, I don't know if that's because of my see, I've always struggled with like things like mathematics and things. I don't know if it's something to do with that, but basically, yeah, in order to be on point with me mixing, I have to do it daily, really, to be doing banging mixes and stuff. Um, but basically, I remember back then I just absolutely sucked all around as a DJ. I was terrible. And basically, I remember struggling away with my drum and bass records, and she'd like left all her records at mine and gone home. And I remember like looking over and just being like, oh, let's have a blast on it. And I realised that, I mean, I know why now because it's all pretty much the same tempo, but like back then I didn't know why, but I was like, oh, I can mix this stuff. So like it got me, it got me playing loads of dubstep then. Um, and obviously it made it grow on me more and more then. In fact, I don't make enough dubstep music because it's sort of died out a bit, and I know exactly how to make that wobbly dubstep and stuff, so something I keep on intending to do on my Roller J channel. But basically, what was my point now? I don't mean to bang on about music, but it has been a big part of my life, basically. So anyway, so we used to go to them raves and that, and initially they were banging. There used to be one in town called Northern Light, which I think it got closed down because of like a drug raid and all that. You know the story. And that were a good one. And I went to a couple in Bradford. I can't remember the names of most of the ones in Bradford, but I used to have a crew of friends in Bradford that were all drum and bass heads like me at the time, and we used to have some banging nights and end up at my mate Damage's flat and just having a smoke at the end of the night and stuff like that. And yeah, good times. I don't regret none of it. I really enjoyed that era of my life. I was running wild, but I enjoyed it. But anyway, basically, what were I going to say? Something about the drum and bass stuff. Oh yeah. So yeah, I used to be really into drum and bass. Always, to be honest, now that I have more knowledge, I know what drum and bass it were that I liked. But back then, I didn't really know what it were. Like, is it this? Is it that? I just knew that I liked heavy drum and bass. But nowadays, I know it's techie drum and bass, or neurofunk as they call it. I still do like a bit of neurofunk, to be fair. But as times progressed, I found myself really, really more into the jungle. I did like the jungle back then, and I've seen like Shy FX and is it Elephant Man and people like that when I was younger growing up, and just loved it. But I'd say I'm more into that stuff now, and into like Rasta type music basically. Anyway, it just, when it comes to drum and bass, I've sort of gone off the heavy stuff, as in like jump up and things. I don't mind it. There's some really, really good jump up, but there's a lot of it, so there's good and bad. But that's like any music. Like for example, I'm a Tupac fan, and Tupac made so much music that he's got songs I like and songs I don't. For example, and other artists too. Even myself as an artist, I make stuff. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's pretty banging, and then I'll make something else and I'll like listen back to it and just think, what the heck were I even thinking when I made that, But yeah, anyway, in more recent time, music wise, I've sort of transitioned more onto like keyboards and samplers and things like that. In fact, I recently bought a drum kit that I keep me in it at practice and stuff. I found that I'd sort of took to it a bit like duck to water when I first got on it. The only thing I was struggling with was the kick pedals. The pedal, syncing up my pedals, like my hi-hat pedal and my kick pedal. But like generally speaking, I could get the rhythms, all the stereotypical drum rhythms that you hear in music, you know. But I've done music for that long now, you know. Um, Lately, I've taken a good solid break from making much music, mainly because I'm like fighting for access to see my little girl, and I mean, I'm not going to go into that now. That's more for a topic for another video or a video in itself. But love you, darling. If you know, for when you get older and you're able to listen back to your dad. And I don't half miss you. You know, it's absolutely killing me basically. But I'm doing, my best to be grown up and be a dad, regardless of the situation. And like I say, this is part of a video log that I plan to just start doing. It's going to be kind of like a diary of my life, really. I should have started one years ago, but I've been listening to a lot of Stoic philosophy, and that's what's kind of made me decide to make this, really, or start making these. What is it? There's a bunch of names when it comes to Stoic philosophy, because it's a Greek like way of thinking, basically, like philosophy, basically. But because of learning that, I've learned about other people. For example, Carl Jung, or Carl Jung, I think it's pronounced, and like Nikolai Machiavelli and people like that. That's my Tupac influence that first got me listening to that guy. But basically, those mindsets are all very similar. Different sort of contexts sometimes, but they're very, very similar mindsets. And especially with what I'm going through at the moment, I find that stuff really helps me. And like I say, I went to like I can't, like I say, it's not actually a rehab or anything. It's more like a stop people from relapsing kind of clinic, type thing. It's not even a clinic. It's just like a group. And what is it? That sort of give me a bit of a boost on my day that day when I went and everything. It helped me feel more positive about what I'm doing. And then I got back and I had a warning through my door about noise. I've got a problem with two noisy neighbours, and it all kind of escalates a little bit here and there, and it always fires back onto me, and I'm the one that seems to get the blame. What it is because I've got all this music gear that I think the housing people just assume it's me, basically. But I'm actually quite quiet, generally speaking. I listen to stuff off of my phone, and I'm quite happy in my little. Even when I play music, I don't play it bangingly loud unless somebody annoys me, basically. And I know that's not very stoic, but as an example, I'm supposed to be sorting my evidence for court, and my neighbour come back, and it just totally knocked me off my thought path of organising evidence and things like that, and nightmare, basically, banging around the clock, and yeah, I mean, I'm not violent or anything like that, but I did have to shout a few things at him, just to shut him up, which is actually quietened him down tonight, to be fair. So yeah, And then, like I say, again, onto the violence thing. I'm not violent, but since stopping my habits and stuff, I'm trying to work on my fitness a little bit. I know I'm still smoking cigs and everything, but I notice that when I'm working, on my body, uh, obviously I wear myself out and I don't need to smoke. So there's been a few things I've been wanting to learn there. I'm actually looking for partners to learn to spar with and things. Hold on. Looking for like sparring partners and stuff in my local area. I live in Whitby, North Yorkshire, so if you're in the same boat and looking for someone to practice combatants, hit me up. I've been focusing on, I want to learn Krav Maga and I want to learn Silat. They're my main focuses. A little bit of Jiu-Jitsu for, grappling type stuff. But like I say, at the moment, I've got no sparring partner, so someone on my kind of level would be ideal. So anyone in the Whitby area wanting to do the same, give me a shout. I noticed that there's a Krav Maga course in Scarborough, which is where I go for me meetings for me habits and everything. So I was wondering if it happens to coincide with that, then I can pay for extra parking and go do that on like the evening or whatever and things like that. But in the meantime, I've just been doing like loads of press ups, sit ups, things like that. A couple of little twists to some of them, but that's the basics. And yeah, I've got a punch bag up at my parents' house that when I get up there, I plan to use a lot more actually. 'Cause so far I've bought it and used it like twice or something, but like I say, it all comes with time. I tend to find that I'm more active at home, so I could do with something down here, but then I'm going to trigger my neighbours when I'm praying on the punch bag and things like that. Do you know what I mean? I think when I think about it, that actually coincides with the neighbours, because one night I had one at neighbours turn up with a baseball bat over all everyone getting rowdy, because like I say, everyone just thinks it's me. But what happens is, for example, me next door neighbours tend to shout all day long, and that'll go on till like usually 11, 12 at night, especially if football's on, because they happen to be football fans, and I can't stand football or the rowdiness of fans and stuff like that. And then my upstairs neighbour comes back and he just bangs around from usually it starts at 5 a.m. every morning, throwing up and everything, because I think he's a bit of an alky, and he just bangs around until he goes to bed basically. So yeah, like I say, it's just a general video log of my life and whether stuff's going good, whether stuff's going bad, and things like that. And yeah, just if you're not like somebody who I know, feel free to view it if it has, if it's interesting to you in any way. And if you're family or friends, one love. And I'm going to end the video before it gets to half an hour. Peace.